As we discussed this morning on this stage, this year's theme is about securing the future. And that is what this presentation is about. How do we secure the future of maritime? And that has to do with finding our path towards a sustainable future. Hence the title of this presentation. What I will do is to talk you a little bit through the initiative we have taken to find your path, to talk about what paths there actually are in order to get to that sustainable future, and some of the expertise we can bring along in order to support you, assist you in actually walking that path towards your objectives. Each vessel segment, and also each shipping company starts its future towards sustainability from a different place, with a different speed, and potentially even with a little bit different direction. There is no one single solution we can find today for the future of maritime. If we recognize that every vessel and every vessel company and every market segment is actually unique in its sustainability journey, we also understand that we need to take an approach towards achieving sustainability by understanding the complexity and the uncertainty which are associated with our vessels, our operating environment, but also the larger geopolitical context. And in order to address that, we need a realistic, pragmatic approach to deal with those issues. In Bureau Veritas, we leverage the many decades of experience we have in dealing with this in a holistic manner. Bureau Veritas is not just about ship classification, but we are active as a testing, inspection and certification company along the entire value chain, starting with the whole production of both the vessels and the fuels as well, and everything which goes around it, all the way to the end products of the vessels and what they are transporting. So the main question then is, if we are agreeing with each other that we want to go towards decarbonization, which is something we need to do, how do we do that today? What actions do we take today? And how do we plan at the same time for the future? Which is no small question, given the enormous amount of uncertainty in three main areas. The first one is regulatory. Regulation, as you well know, is evolving all the time and changing all the time with new regulations coming into place. And it's a challenge to keep up with that and, of course, to comply. The second one is the fuel outlook. What kind of fuels will we have in the future and how can we utilize them? And how do we design vessels today which can help and can utilize these fuels in the future? And the third one is the big unknown of our times, if you like, is the geopolitical instability and uncertainty. And how does that geopolitics affect decisions, which then influence again regulations, fuel availability and technology availability? I think we can all agree that the climate impact we are seeing today is a function of the accumulated greenhouse gas emissions, not of the greenhouse gas emissions on a yearly basis or something like that. That means that we cannot wait for all the future technologies we are working on today to be fully implemented before we start making a transition. So we have to do both something now while preparing for the future. I will go a little bit deeper into these two concepts of regulation and fuels. The regulatory roadmap is moving really, really fast. It's complex because we are not just talking about the global regulation from the International Maritime Organization, but we are seeing local and regional legislation. Think about the EU, the UK, also some Far East countries are implementing their own standards. And as shipping companies, we have to deal with all of that at the same time. And it is really complex and it is really fast. The main challenge we are seeing ahead of us at the moment is the midterm measures, which have to be voted on in IMO in London in October this year, whether or not we will have the net zero framework coming into place. The expectation in general is that that would happen, and I think it is wise that we plan as an international shipping community for that new regulation coming into place. It will be a major one, because it will have far-going implications on how things are going to look in the future and what kind of fuel choices and compliance choices we will have to make to keep our industry on this track towards decarbonization in the direction of 2030 and 2050. The beginning of these new regulations, both in terms of IMO and FuelEU, looks relatively benign. The requirements in the first years until 2030 are not that demanding yet. But if we look at the window 2030-2035, this is rapidly changing, and we will have to start seeing really significant cuts down into the greenhouse gas emission intensity of vessels and the overall total greenhouse gas emissions of shipping. And that is the area we need to focus ourselves on if we make choices today into what kind of vessels we build for the future, because 2030, 2035, that's tomorrow in terms of the life of a ship. So how is that taking shape? What kind of initiatives do we see, and what kind of fuels do we see? Still today, about 50%, slightly over, are on conventional fuel in terms of order book. But we see also that the other 50% are already looking into alternatives. LNG is obviously the most well-established alternative and used for quite a few years. Today, mainly in this fossil form, but there is many initiatives to move more and more towards bio-LNGs and to so-called e-fuels, fuels made with electricity synthetically. The second fuel we see becoming significant in terms of order book coverage is methanol at around 8% of the gross tonnage order book. Both LNG and methanol are therefore at the moment the leading alternative fuels for the future in terms of regulatory midterm compliance. However, if this net zero framework from IMO comes into force in October, we expect there will be a significant uptick in biofuel adoption. The reason for that is that given the framework as it is proposed today, by 2028, fossil fuels, whether it's diesel, heavy fuel oil, or LNG, even with low methane slip, will no longer be compliant on its own. And that means that tier 2 penalties will have to be starting to be paid from 2028 if you are running on full fossil fuel. So that is the first push towards an actual effect on the cost of fuel entering into force through new regulation. If we then look at 2030, 2035, the time window I talked about, which is really crucial, then we really have to start looking into the adoption of biofuels. In the beginning, probably by 10% blends, and by 2035 up to 40%, in order to have the most cost-effective solution between the cost of the fuel itself and the penalties to be paid under the new regulatory framework. I don't talk here about full green, zero or net zero fuels yet. And the reason for that is that in the first part of the new regulation, the price differential expected between those fully net zero fuels and paying up for additional non-compliance is not yet there. So there is a limited incentive to go for full green methanol or e-ammonia or whatever it is that we emphasize. That being said, as there is a development of a scheme to reward zero and net zero fuels, that price differential over time will decrease, and that hopefully will stimulate investment in vessels which are capable of burning those alternative zero and net zero fuels in the future, especially beyond 2035. So that is a little bit an outlook on those different pathways. Beyond LNG and methanol, we see limited uptake in other fuels, but it is more experimental, partly because of a lack of fuel availability, partly because of a huge price differential, which seems economically unviable at the moment, but also because of safety concerns. Think about the toxicity of ammonia or the storage and high pressure storage or liquefied storage of hydrogen. That being said, our role as a class society is to follow all these technical developments as we go forward to see technology coming out and making sure we put in place the regulatory framework to support these alternative fuels. As a class society, we are what we call technology agnostic. We don't decide for you what the fuel needs to be or the propulsion technology needs to be. We will make sure that we have the knowledge and the competency as class societies to guide you through that process and the choices you make in a safe and compliant manner. That is our role in this. So how does that work out then in the real life? And then we make the bridge to Donse Shipping Meet and the Donse ship owners. Methanol is definitely picking up traction as an alternative fuel, both in terms of new buildings. We see here the methanol prepared Ternvik, which just arrived half an hour ago here in the deep sea port. We see the Northern Offshore vessel services CTV Transporter, which has been a conversion of a diesel-fueled CTV into a methanol-fueled CTV. So there we see also that there is a real drive to try this technology out and get it operational into the real world. And of course, we need to bunker in the future as well. Without availability of fuel and bringing them on board, we need something. So this is a picture of Briesen, also available today here in Donsøy for viewing, which is designed to bunker methanol on vessels in the future. A second development we are seeing ongoing today, and which is very strong in North Europe and especially in Scandinavia, is electrification. We see more and more fully electric or hybrid electric vessels coming into force. Again, a picture of the Terntank vessel series, the new series, which is also battery hybrid. Sirius is looking at smaller chemical tankers with a hybrid approach, dry cargo vessels for Erik Thun, new ferries, fully electric for Molslinjen in Denmark operating, large SOV, service operation vessels in offshore wind with a battery hybrid approach, and also Arctic research vessels being built with battery hybrid approach in order to save fuel and make the vessels more operational versatile. So electrification of vessels is really picking up speed, and it is part of the whole decarbonization journey taking off. Many of the vessels you will see also in the port. We saw Ternvik, also Responder is one of the NOS CTVs in the port. Also, this vessel is a hybrid electric vessel with batteries on board, so you can visit them. But we also need to think about the next step. What is the next frontier? We need to think about ammonia, we do need to think about hydrogen. And this is a real world project we are doing with the Norwegian ship owner Maritime, where we are going to build a series of small 4,000 deadweight dry cargo vessels using hydrogen as a fuel and fuel cells as a converter for the fuels into electrical power, which can then drive the electrical motor and the vessel. So it is not anymore just a theoretical discussion, but this is actually happening, and some shipping companies, with or without support, mostly with some support from their communities, are investing in new technologies to gain the operational experience and knowledge of running on those new fuels. The most sustainable fuel, as we all know, is the fuel we don't burn. So looking only at fuels and propulsion technology is not going to cut it, especially if we talk about what we can do today. Operational efficiency, pragmatism into what can we do in terms of saving energy and optimizing vessel design, but also operation, is something here to stay. On the slide you see many different things we can do, both operationally as well as technically through design and operation. Think about speed reduction, just-in-time, weather routing, but also the installation of wind sails. Ternvik has a wind sail system on board, and it will not be the first vessel from this community which will use wind-assisted propulsion to save fuel. We see actually quite a large uptake of wind-assisted propulsion system on many different ships at the moment, and we are involved in the classification of many of them. All of this needs to be done in order to save fuel for the future, contribute to fighting climate change, but also make the change and the decarbonization financially manageable. It's not just about fuels and propulsion technology. It is really about a combination of energy efficiency plus technology. As Bureau Veritas, we exist nearly 200 years. And during that period of nearly 2 centuries, we have gained a lot of experience in dealing with new technologies and energy transition. Think about the transition from sail to steam, from wooden ships to iron ships and later on to steel ships, the introduction of the diesel engine, the introduction of LNG as a fuel, battery technology, and now moving forward towards a full decarbonization of our industry and its supply chain. Therefore, we are focused on safety, on environment, but also on the operational efficiency and performance of the vessels. We do that for more than 12,000 classed ships in the world, which makes us the largest classification society globally by number of classed assets. And it is helpful for us to build on that 200 years of expertise to guide our clients through their decarbonization journey. We do that with a team of 3,000 professionals in marine and offshore and nearly 90,000 colleagues in the wider Bureau Veritas group. And it is important to mention that because we leverage the competency and the experience and expertise in other parts of our company in order to also support the maritime industry. Think about fuels themselves. We have our colleagues from Verifuel that are here in the room available. John Nielsen, if you would like to talk to him about what we do in terms of fuel quality and quantity testing and preparing the sustainability of future zero and net zero fuels. We look at supply chain in itself. We also consider, for example, nuclear propulsion. One of the possible technologies of the future will be nuclear. And we have 300 nuclear scientists in Bureau Veritas who help us out to gain the knowledge and the expertise to understand how that could work in a shipping environment. That's not something we will see tomorrow, but it is again something we need to prepare for as a community, as an industry. Building on this network, we have 180 operational centers in terms of surveys. We have our local plan approval offices all over the world, including in Oslo and in Copenhagen, which help us to support you locally in the region for your needs. At the end of the day, classification societies are all about rules and regulations. So our foundation remains the rules and standards we develop for the safe deployment of alternative fuels, propulsion systems and bunker systems. And that is what we will continue to do to support you to build the knowledge and technology. We do that with a team of more than 300 people in our future shipping teams, which look at all the different aspects and work streams we have available, including wind propulsion, nuclear, alternative fuels, and all the things which go along the supply chain, along fuels themselves, but also the sustainability strategy going forward. Nobody can do this in isolation. Collaboration, as it is many times discussed here so extensively in Donso, is key to getting that done. So therefore we work with a large number of not only shipping companies, yards and designers, but also industry collaboration groups to make this all happen and contribute to that discussion. And on that note, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I think we will play a small video to end the presentation. Thank you very much. Tack så mycket.
Every journey is unique. Even when we know where we're going, how we choose to get there can look very different. The shipping industry is setting a course to achieve net zero by or close to 2050. But for the 200,000 vessels in the global fleet, each will start their transition from a different place, with different needs, and move at a different pace. At Bureau Veritas, we're here to support you on that journey. Find your path with us.
There is no single path to decarbonize the maritime industry. Today's global fleet is made up of multiple ship types and sizes, serving markets with widely different needs and subject to an unstable geopolitical climate. To add to the complexity, each of these ships has an average service life of 20 to 25 years. Ship owners therefore face mounting pressure, but also uncertainty. How can they identify lasting solutions to reach net zero in the next 2 decades, while also starting to act now?
We believe that decarbonizing the maritime industry means finding viable paths to cut emissions from this existing fleet, while identifying the most promising fuels, technologies, and designs for future ships. That means we favor a dual approach that is both vessel and fleet specific, as well as market-wide, as the best way to successfully manage a sustainable decarbonization strategy. We're agnostic to specific technologies. Our aim is to provide grounded observations and a pragmatic response that capture the full picture of this challenge.
The array of options to decarbonise shipping is growing all the time. Alternate means of propulsion and alternative fuels provide real options. Exciting technologies like wind propulsion and carbon capture are gaining traction. Low carbon and zero emission fuels continue to be trialled and deployed, and emerging pathways to decarbonisation, such as nuclear power, are now being considered. Bureau Veritas' goal is to help make sense of this landscape and guide owners to pragmatic solutions. To support our customers on their journey and to support those that want to challenge the status quo of the marine and offshore industry, we set up the Future Shipping Team, which draws upon a network of subject matter experts from across our marine and offshore division and the wider group. Uniting this deep understanding of global supply chains, we support our customers in making future-proof choices around sustainability, technology, and innovation on their path to 2050 and beyond.
We're leveraging our cross-sectorial knowledge and 200 years of maritime insight to help you adopt new technologies and strategies with confidence. We're by your side as you navigate this journey. Find your path with Bureau Veritas.
Thank you. A short question. I mean, you said that there is lots and lots to have to be done for securing the future.
Yes.
And technologies, innovations, and for development. But what is the role of the human, do you think, in all this?
The role of the human is crucial. I would say, in the first instance, to take the decision to start moving. That's a mindset thing, which we need to take as an industry. And I think a lot of companies and people in the companies have started to realize that we cannot wait for these future technologies, which are semi-perfect, to come in place and then to start looking at, okay, let's apply them. We need to start today. So that decision mindset is very important to start with.
Yeah.
Then as we go forward, indeed, and we take decisions on what it is that we're going to do, especially on the short term on energy efficiency, because for new vessels, we can invest, we can come up with new technologies and do things, but for existing ships, it is more difficult. Wind propulsion is one option, there is also other technologies, but the rest of it is operational. So it has to do a lot with, again, a mindset of the crew, training people how to save fuel, how to operate the vessel in a different way, which is more energy efficient, almost similar as when we drive our cars and we try to be as energy efficient as we can to save fuel or have longer battery range, or depending on how we do that, especially in the cold, as you know in Sweden very well. So it is really
The human
vital
will be needed.
that the human is in there. Yes, this is not without humans.
No.
And also the technology itself, especially if you look at the fuels, some of them are toxic, some of them are explosive. They need to be handled with care. So training and proper design for safe use are essential for that. And definitely the human will be part of that entire chain.
Yeah.